Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you guys very much for coming and stopping by, taking a look at my video real quick. So, I do have the Wesley versus Teimour Radjabov from round 11. As you guys know, they played like 10 games today, so I don't think anybody out there is doing all 10 games unless they literally wake up and just do videos the entire day. I brought some I think some pretty good games, some pretty interesting games. This one is like super roller coaster interesting. And so I do have this one here for you guys. For all my people in the Philippines, mabuhay, kamusta na? Mabuting pagbati, ingat lagi, almasal tayo. Maraming salamat po sa nanonood, inga king my video. Masaya akong makikinig muli. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, taking a look at my stuff. Anybody from Azerbaijan, I will say salam and chak sargol. Is that wrong? I feel like that's wrong. Is that wrong? Maybe, hold on. Yeah, no, that's right. I thought I used a different language by accident. I was like, man, it didn't seem right. No, chak sargol. Yeah, that's right. Cool. Assalamu alaikum to everybody out there. If you guys are ready to go, you got to buckle up, man, because like I said, this is a roller coaster ride. It's going to be kind of crazy. Put your seatbelts on. Let's roll. All right, so we got e4, e6. So we see a French defense, d4. We got d5, knight comes to c3. We see knight to f6. We got e5, knight f to d7. We see f4, c5, knight to f3, knight to c6. And we see bishop to e3. And, okay, you guys, if you guys are ready, I'll let you know. It is the French defense, classical, Steinitz, Boleslavsky variation. That is like a gigantic opening name. I don't know if there's any like openings that are longer than that. I mean, there probably are, but there's not a lot. Anyway, that's a mouthful, man. But anyways, you know, it's pretty typical. Anybody who plays the French defense, I actually played this from the black side and actually do pretty well with it. You know, I mean, this is all thematic. I mean, you got c5 coming. You know, you got f5 coming at some point. You know, a lot of times they try to push f6 or they might take here. So, I mean, this is all standard French defense type stuff. So anybody who plays this should know. But moving on, we do see pawn takes d4, knight takes d4. And then we got queen to b6. And it might look kind of strange because you're like, man, wait a minute. Like, I mean, the bishop is like right here. But there aren't any good discoveries. I mean, you really just kind of have to put the knight here to make some type of discovery. The problem is you're going to be dropping this pawn anyway. So, you know, go ahead and just develop a piece. So go queen to d2. We got queen takes b2, rook to b1, queen to a3. So this is all regular standard stuff. Like anytime you're going to take a pawn off the queen side or the king side, it's going to pretty much follow, you know, these similar lines and stuff. Bishop coming to b5. You got knight takes d4, bishop takes d4. We got a6, bishop takes d7, bishop takes d7. Then we see rook to b3. Kicking his queen away, saying, hey, man, you need to leave. Get out of here. You're in my kitchen. So we got queen to e7. We see rook takes b7. So you did get your pawn back. So, you know, the pawn is not lost. We got rook to c8. We see castles by white. Queen coming up to d8. And we see queen to e3 by white. Now, I mean, this is kind of like some type, like a little bit of a time in the game where, like, you know, black has to be like, you know, a little bit careful because, you know, they are stuck in the center. You know, they do kind of need to get this bishop somewhere. And so, you know, if they're not careful, things can get, you know, things can heat up pretty quickly. And you guys know the thematic pawn push, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be f5. Now, it's kind of crazy in these positions because it doesn't carry like a lot of fire. Pretty much if you play it one move ago or you keep playing, you know, at any point, it's not going to be like just ripping the position open and you're going to have some spectacular checkmate. But I mean, it's definitely not wrong. But we do see rook to c4. We got rook f to b1. We see bishop to e7 and we see f5 here. And then we see bishop coming to g5. And this isn't really a problem because, I mean, the queen has like a bunch of different options. It can go queen to f2, d3, you know, so there's a lot of different, you know, stuff in this position. So we do see queen to d3. We see castles by black. And then we see rook 1 to b6. And this is the novelty of the game. So it took 21 moves to get to the novelty. So that's kind of crazy deep when you think about it. Now, in this position, there was like a nice, cute little move that you can play. It doesn't really do a major a lot, but, you know, you could actually play knight to e4 here. You know, point being, you know, of course, if you take with the pawn, you're going to be taking this rook, so you're not going to do that. But it's kind of a way to like redirect this knight over here to d6. But you'd probably be seeing, you know, bishop coming back to e7. So, you know, maybe push like f6, something like that. So, you know, it was just kind of something you could have threw in there. But rook 1 did come to b6. We see bishop to c6, knocking the rook over to a7. You know, like with that, you did have other options as well. You know, you didn't have to put it on a7, but you are double attacking this pawn here on a6. So, you know, that's a little bit something. Try to create your little pass pawn over here. So we got pawn takes f5, rook b takes a6. We see queen to c8. We got a4 because, you know, pass pawns must be pushed. The only kind of thing is, you know, these rooks are a little bit in the way. So you kind of have to move them out of the way so that pawn can, you know, like really run like Usain Bolt. So we got f4. Knight comes to e2. We see bishop back to d7. We got c3. And so this is like a really nice kind of like, you know, just consolidating move. You know, you're just kind of getting everything protected here. You know, so you do see bishop to f5 and you got queen to d2. And we have actually reached a point in the game. I have two guess the moves. There is actually a complete win here for black. So Teimour Radjabov does have a win in the position. So let's see if you can go ahead and pause the video and guess this win. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we saw in the game, which Teimour Radjabov does miss this. But I will show you what the killer move is. Bishop to e4 is what was played in the game. And this really does white off the hook. And they play e6 and they kind of have their own little attack going. But if we back up, the move that really is screaming to be played is actually f3. And f3 is just completely lost because you are attacking this knight and you are also attacking this queen with that one pawn move. So you're going to be forced to take on g5. Pawn's going to take e2. And you have to go king to f2 because, you know, you have to stop this pawn from promoting. And, you know, there was also like some, you know, situations like bishop coming to d3. You didn't want to see that. So the rook would actually take on d4. You'd be taken back with a pawn. Queen would come to c3. And, you know, you have like the base of your pawn structure getting messed up. You are threatening to push this pawn forward, which would actually be mate. So you don't want to see that. So the king would actually take on e2, but you would see bishop to d3 with check. King would come to f2, queen to c2 with check, king to g3. Bishop would take on a6, and you absolutely cannot take this bishop back because you would be losing an entire piece, your rook. So if rook did take, you would see queen to d3 with check. And this is pretty much best play for both sides. And so you can see just kind of like, you know, the issues that you have with this position. You're just literally going to only have a queen. Let me see, 4. So you're going to have an extra pawn, but you're going to be down an entire rook. And, you know, that's just not good. So that was a really crazy line that Radjabov did miss. You know, I'm not sure like if he realized this at any point in the game, or if maybe he looked at the game after and was like, oh man, but I know he's kicking himself right now. I know that. So getting back to what we had in the game, we saw bishop to e4. We did see e6. We got rook to c7. We see h4, trying to deflect this bishop away so we can just grab this pawn and be good to go. You know, also you can take it with the queen there, and that would be like a nice little fork situation going on. So we do see bishop back to h6. We see rook takes c7, queen takes c7. We got rook to a7 because why not throw a tempo on the queen? If you ever get a chance to, and it seems like it, you know, it's going to knock the queen into, you know, a bad square, go ahead and just, you know, throw a little tempo on the queen. It's kind of like threatening checkmate, you know, like just inconvenience your opponent real quick. So we got queen back to b8. We see pawn takes f7 with check, rook takes f7, rook takes f7. We see king takes f7, queen over to a2. We see queen to c8. We see queen to b2, king coming down to g6. We see king to f1. And we have reached the point in the game again where this is a completely won position for black. So this is like another win that Radjabov is presented with. Just kind of like, you know, here you go. So if you want to pause the video and spot the win for black, go ahead and do so. All right, cool. So if you guys notice, you guys have your bishop kind of working a little bit. This bishop is working a little bit, but one piece that you have in black's position that isn't really working that much right now is this queen. This queen is kind of offsides, way off in the distance. Like, hey man, you know, bring it in, you know, like let's go. So actually queen to g4 is completely won in this position. Automatically you are threatening checking here. The king is going to be forced to move over. And then you have this pawn rolling forward, and there's not really anything you can do to stop that pawn from coming up. this bishop is going to start coming in the game somewhere, and it's just lights out, man. And so, you know, to prevent the check on G2, you're going to be forced to play knight to G1. You're going to be looking at queen to D1 with check. King comes to F2. You got bishop to D3. So you're threatening checkmate here. You got knight to E2 to, you know, block that. You have king coming down to F5. So now you have the king like just casually strolling into the scene. Like, hey, you know, here I am. Like, you know, I'm about to just roll up in, you know, everywhere. So we got queen to A2. You're really kind of in a zugzwang as white. You don't really have any good moves that you can make. I mean, you either going to shift the queen or you're going to shift the bishop. Pawn move is going to do you no good. The king is just going to mosey on in and just grab this pawn over here and be setting up all kinds of nasties. So you got bishop to C4. Queen coming back to B2. You're just making sure that you support this bishop and you are still attacking and threatening the mates and stuff like that. G5 by black. Pawn, and if you do take pawn, it takes G5, which there really isn't much else that you can do. You know, you can always try to, you know, maybe go king F3 or something like that. But, you know, this pawn is going to get pushed down. There just really is no good moves for white. You know, pawn takes, bishop takes, and you guys can see, I mean, this king is going to come here. This bishop is going to come here. There just really isn't much that you can do. You can't move this knight. You are just in such a zigzag position. It's insane. And so it's really insane the two separate wins that Radjabov that he missed in this game. And Wesley So is like Frank Marshall just swindling the game, you know, right now from Teimour Radjabov. He's like literally flirting with death and then coming back to life. Like, you know, it's crazy. So going back to what we had in the game, we saw king to F1, and then we actually saw king to H5. And this gives white like the most crucial tempo ever, because now you see knight to G1, and you don't really have a lot of time to move this queen here. We see bishop to D3 with check. We see king to F2. We do see queen to G4, but then we see like the really perfect knight to F3. And you're not worried about this check here because the king is just going to move down here. And I mean, you're looking good. I mean, this square is protected. So you don't really have any entry points, you know, for black. So bishop comes to E4. We got queen to E2, just making sure we defend. We got G5, pawn takes G5, bishop takes G5, and then we start rolling A5. There really just isn't much that's going to be stopping this pawn. You guys can see that, you know, this square is covered, this square is covered. So we got to get to a point where we can cover A8. So we got bishop to D8, A6. We got king to H6, A7. Queen comes back to C8, has to defend. But then we see queen to A2. And, you know, we're just threatening. I mean, this pawn literally just took over the entire game. We got queen coming back to A8. And this is something that you do not want. You do not want your strongest piece on the board to literally be stuck on one square. Like, there is one square that the queen can go to, and it's on it. And you don't want that. Don't do that. So we got queen to A7 with check. We got king down to H5. We see queen to E6. And it is actually in this position that Radjabov does resign the game. And he does so because queen is going to be coming to H3 and is going to be checking. And this king is going to be getting into like a severe checkmating net. And the only thing you can really do is block with this bishop on G5. The queen is going to come to H3. You're going to go back to king to G6. You got knight to E5 with check, king to F6. And then you got queen to D7. And you guys can see that there is checkmate here on F7. And so, I mean, this queen is literally toying between trying to protect and make sure that this pawn doesn't promote and trying to save checkmate. So we see, you know, bishop coming to H4 with like a little spike check. King coming to G1. Queen to G8. And, you know, we're threatening checkmate here, but we do have the really nice G4, which, you know, the queen is not going to take here. And if you take with en passant, you are closing down the file, and that's not what you want. And then you get to a point where the computer says you have to throw in bishop to F2. Check. And like I said, when you get to a point in the game where you have to start throwing pieces away for nothing, that's where you know, like, it's at this point that you realize you messed up. No. But yeah, that is the game. Like I said, going back to what we had in the game, queen came to E6, and Radjabov actually just went ahead and threw the towel in and said, forget it. I don't want no more. Stop being mean to me. And that was that. So this was a really, I'll say this is a really lucky game for Wesley. So, I mean, he going to take the W, But this was, I mean, he literally just continuously got left off, you know, like what was I trying to say? Let off the hook. He got let off the hook twice. So, I mean, you know, Wesley, so he has to thank his lucky stars on this one. But getting to these languages, I think I might be able to just go through and do them real quick. I did them pretty fast a second ago. So let me see how my luck is looking right now. So, Maanyong buntog, mayad na agahan, naimbag na bigat, masentos ya kabason, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maanyong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapanu dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big bukla, marja na buntog, Maria Mainat, Maupai na aga, and Kasan Yangan C LUB. Yeah, son. Assalamu alaikum and salam to you. Merci for anybody who might be speaking French. And I think I got them all hooked up. And you guys seen it. You guys seen me go from 0 to hero. So I'm actually really happy about that. I told everybody I was going to do it. And I finally got it done. So, you know, yes. You know, I was trying to be confident with it at the beginning, but I wasn't really sure how, you know, good I was going to be. Because, I mean, look at this list. Look at this list of good mornings. This is like 20 good mornings that I had to learn. And it took me a minute, man, but I got it. Appreciate everybody for hanging in there with me. Merci beaucoup, mes amis, anybody that's coming from France. And chak sagol to all my people that are Azerbaijani. And I will see y'all next time.